Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's a weekly series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mekas. If this is your first time watching, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and also follow wherever you listen to your podcast. Today, we are picking back up. This is part 2, Septemics, a philosophical science. And today we have back with us Jim Marshall. Thank you for being with us again to share some of this remarkable and unbelievable science that you have discovered over the years.
Hi, Paul.
So we're going to, and for those who are tuning into this show, part 2, go back and watch part 1, which gives us an explanation, kind of an introduction. But for those who are watching part 2 for the first time, let's recap a little bit on Septemics. Give us a little bit of an overview and a recap of the system.
Okay. Well, I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published it in the book Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to humans occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Literally, the word septemics means of or pertaining to 7. Septemics comprises a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. There are 35 such scales, each of which is unique, and together they span the spectrum of human experience, meaning any problem, situation, difficulty, dilemma, etc., that any person has can successfully be analyzed by this system.
Yes. And we're going to, let me go into here, because we're going to go through a slideshow, and that will best of these individual scales. Let's see if I can get this working here on share screen. There we go. So, Hierarchies of Human Phenomenon, Analysis, Prediction. I tell you what, Jim, I will let you do this. You just give me the cues.
Okay, so as you can see, there is the Septemics logo. This has meaning in it. It tells you a lot about Septemics. Notice it is a 7-pointed star. Each ray points in a different direction and is a different color, but between them they make a spectrum. And that is exactly what each of these scales does. There are always 7 levels. It makes a spectrum of the corresponding subject matter. And there are, as I said before, 35 different scales, each of which is expressed in a table. So we're going to show you the table, and I will tell you a little bit about it. These are the individual scales, meaning they apply primarily to individuals. And then if we get to it eventually, we would get into the group scales, which apply more to groups. Okay, so we have here the scale of basic purposes. What could possibly be more valuable to you as regards any person than knowing the person's basic purpose, including your own? There are only 7 basic purposes. Every person has one of these 7. And this is a persistent trait, meaning a person's level on this scale usually lasts for his entire lifetime.
Huh.
There are occasions when a person can go up a level or down a level as a result of some spectacular experience. And I could go into examples of how that happens, but that would be an unusual circumstance, and it's something that is only going to happen maybe once in your life, if at all. So when you find somebody's level on this scale, whether it's your own or another person's, this is almost or usually permanent information. So you know what the person is about. You know what this person is trying to do. He's trying to achieve his basic purpose. And once you know that, everything else about the person comes into focus. Now, notice it says type, linear, quantum, general. Every one of these 35 scales is either linear or spiral, quantum or I'm sorry,
No worries. No worries.
quantum or gradual, and general or specific. Now, let me tell you what that means. This is a linear scale. It proceeds exactly the way you would expect it to. It goes from 1 to 7. There are scales which are spiral scales in which there's an apparent overlap between level 1 and level 7 to the point where even the verbiage of it is identical. That can be misleading because this is why you sometimes see people making a catastrophic mistake in mistaking the best person for the worst person. A good example of that is somebody like Jesus of Nazareth, who was at level 1 on this scale. Now, this is not a spiral scale, but many of the other scales are spiral, and they sort of made the mistake of thinking he was at level 7, which is the lowest level, which is a good reason to get rid of somebody. So this is linear. We don't have to worry about that. Quantum. What that means is you are either at level 1 or level 2. There's nothing in between. There's no intervening gradation. You move, to the extent that you do, instantaneously from one level to the next. So you're at a certain level, you have a realization, and suddenly you're at another level, either up one level or down one level. That's what a quantum scale is. And general, meaning this is not about context. Once you find a person on a general scale, you're done with that person. You have isolated the appropriate phenomena. Now, most of the scales are specific scales, meaning it's context driven. And when we get to those, you'll see what I mean by that. It only has a meaning in a certain context. So when you spot somebody's basic purpose, this is a general phenomenon. So, for example, if you were to spot your own level on this scale, that would be a life-changing moment for you. Because what would happen is you would realize what your basic purpose was and that the other 6 did not apply to you. You would throw them out, say, they are not what I'm about. I'm about this level. And that makes it much easier to live your life. Or, for example, if you find your spouse's basic purpose, okay, you throw out the other 6 levels, you know what this person is about. They're trying to achieve this certain thing, and we'll go into those 7 possibilities.
Okay.
Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. So now notice it says this scale aligns with the scale of life spheres. Now, there are several individual scales which have a corresponding group scale. In other words, it manifests in an individual one way and in a group in another way, but they are locked together. So if we get to the scale of life spheres, or if you get the book and look at it, you'll see how there is some correspondence. And if you read this chapter, you'll see I explain in great detail how the life spheres correspond to basic purpose. Okay, so now notice you have these 7 levels with each of which has a name in capitals. And next to it, you have either a plus sign or a minus sign.
Yeah.
7 of the scales have this manifestation where you have it's either plus or minus. Now, the plus or minus does not mean good or bad. It means inflow or outflow, or to put it another way, reach or withdraw. Now, when you're talking about physical phenomena, like, for example, the electricity coming into your house, alternating current, it flows one way for a 60th of a second, and then it flows back the other way for a 60th of a second. Now, of course, to electrons, a 60th of a second is a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that it's inflow, outflow, inflow, or you're breathing. You breathe in, you breathe out. You breathe in, you breathe out. So nature is full of that sort of inflow, outflow, inflow, outflow. And it is a major rule that you need to understand. You can only flow in one direction for so long, which is why Tesla's AC is vastly superior to the direct current that we used before he came up with AC.
Yeah.
Edison's system was direct current, and you had to have a transformer every so many 100 yards to reboost the signal, which is very inefficient. So anyway, on a human level, it makes more sense to say reach and withdraw. You see, when you reach for something, you're outflowing. And when you withdraw from something, you're inflowing. So you could think of the plus as either outflow or reaching, and you could think of the minus as either inflow or withdrawing. And as we go through these, you'll see how this works. Each of these 7 levels is either reaching or withdrawing. Now, this is extremely significant. This is why this is a quantum scale. You see, if you're at, let's say, hypothetically, level 3, that is an inflow level. You are inflowing. Your basic function, your basic modus operandi in life is to inflow, 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 inflow. You're on an inflow, which is to say, you could call it withdrawing. Now, if you were to go from 3 to 2, you would have to completely reverse your polarity. Now, this is a concept that is understood in Oriental philosophy. I think originally it comes from Taoism, but it might also be present in Buddhism and Hinduism, where they have the idea that a person can reverse polarity, in which case this is a vast and significant change in the person's entire personality when he goes from inflowing to outflowing or vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's why this is quantum. So if you're inflowing, the next level above you or below you is outflowing. And in order to do that, you have to completely reverse polarity on your entire personality. This can be done, but it is rare and challenging.
Mm.
And that's why this is a quantum scale.
Yeah.
There's no gradation between going from level 3 to level 2. You change in a trillionth of a second from one to the next. So obviously, this would have to be some really big deal. The example I give in the book of a person changing the level on this is St. Paul. St. Paul, also known originally as Saul of Tarsus, was a Roman citizen, and his job was to oppress Christians. Okay?
Yeah.
He worked for the government. So he was on the road to Damascus on horseback, and we don't really know exactly what happened, but the way it says it in the Bible is that there was a bright light, he was knocked off his horse, and a voice said to him, Saul, why do you persecute me? And he had a major change in his whole personality, and he went from being a leader, which is what he was at level 2, up to 1, a saint, and he became Saint Paul instantaneously. He changed his name from Saul to Paul. And it was Paul who was responsible for bringing Christianity to the Gentiles. Before that, it was only a subcult within the Jewish people, which is a very small demographic. And it was he who brought it to everyone else. So he is a very important person in the whole history of Christianity. And that explains the whole origin of how he went from being Saul, the oppressor of Christianity, to Paul, the spreader of Christianity. Another example, going in the opposite direction, is if you had somebody in a Nazi concentration camp who survived, he lived through it. When he got out, he probably would be at the next level down from whatever he was before. Because a situation like that is seriously traumatic over a long period of time is probably going to knock you down a level. So those are examples. But normally, most people, that does not happen. Right? Most of us haven't been through either of those types of circumstances.
Yeah.
So if you have a person, let's say you have a person, a religious person who meditates for 50 years, and then one day, poof, he goes up a level, okay? That was the result of 50 years of meditation, or you might say prayer, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
So this would be a major change in the personality. Now, let's go through these 7 levels and talk about the inflow and the outflow. So at 7, you have a subversive. A subversive is on an inflow. He's pulling in destruction on everyone and everything. His basic purpose is to destroy. Now, many people will have difficulty grasping this. They'll say something like, well, why would a person have that for basic purpose, to destroy? Well, if you study Adolf Hitler or Pol Pot carefully, as I have done, it is clear that their basic purpose was to destroy. This is below being a criminal. See, the average criminal is not a subversive. In fact, in organized crime, when they get somebody in there who's like that, who's inherently destructive, they usually put a bullet in his skull to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Because this guy is going to cause big trouble. The smart people in organized crime run it like a business. That's why it's organized, okay? So if they have some lunatic who goes around who's inherently destructive, he's not helping them to make more money. He's going to bring heat on them.
Yeah, he's causing too much.
That's right. So they will get rid of that guy. So that's an inflow. It's pulling in destruction on anyone and everything. So if you look at Hitler, well, it's obvious that he was destructive to the Allies, but he was destructive to Germany, to his family, to his military, to anything he went near, he was destructive. And that is clear in his life. He was an inherently destructive person. So he was what I call a subversive. He was intending to subvert. Now, up from that is level 6, which is the criminal. Criminal is on an outflow. What is the criminal outflow? Bullets, punches, blows to the head with a club, right? When they throw a bomb through your window because you didn't make your payment that week, that's an outflow.
Yeah.
And what these people are motivated by is pleasure. The criminal wants pleasure. Now, there are 5 times as many criminals as there are subversives, which is good news. because these people can be dealt with. They're not completely crazy. They're dangerous and they're degraded, but they're not as crazy as the subversive. So that is the criminal. That's the way to understand a criminal. A criminal, like a subversive, has no conscience. He's out for pleasure, and he'll do whatever he has to do to get it. So if you interfere with his drug deal, well, he'll just have you killed.
Yeah.
Because he wants that $1 million, because he's going to use it to buy alcohol, food, custom-made suits, Cadillacs, or whatever he wants, entertainment. Okay, that's the criminal. That's the way to understand him. Now, there's a horizontal line there. That horizontal line separates those two at the bottom from the next level up. Now, if you go to the right side, you'll see it says from the top, superhuman, human, and subhuman. The people at the top of the scale, meaning the leaders and the saints, are superhumans. They have abilities that most of us simply do not have or are never going to have. And when I get to those people, we'll talk about that. The largest group is the humans. That's most of us. This is a very large demographic group. They're humans, okay? They're easy for most of us to understand. And the two at the bottom make up subhumans. Most of the problems in society are caused by the subhumans. They are destructive and malicious. Now, the criminal is not inherently destructive. He's only destructive if you get in his way. So that's not quite as crazy. Now, when you cross over from 6 into 5, you come to what I call the loser. A loser is not someone who's doing badly. Anybody could be doing badly. A loser is someone whose purpose is to suffer. Now, most people are going to say, that doesn't make any sense. I agree with you. It doesn't make any sense. But this is a person who sabotages himself. If you give him $50,000, he'll blow it in Vegas. If you give him a house, it'll burn down. If you give him a car, he'll crash it. If you get him a job, he'll get fired. Okay? This guy is trying to suffer. This was the last of the 7 of these levels for me to figure out, because it doesn't make any sense to normal people. But it's a large group. It's 20% of the population are like this.
Wow.
These people destroy themselves with drugs, with alcohol, with sex, with tobacco. You look at somebody, you say, this guy's smoking. Everybody knows that kills you. Why is he doing that, right? He's not a stupid person. Well, maybe he's at this level, you see? And that's how he's going to make himself suffer. He's going to give himself emphysema, and he's going to die when he's 50. So there's no limit to the ways in which someone can sabotage himself. There's a virtual infinitude of ways. Jumping off a bridge is an obvious way, but there are much subtle ways, like keeping yourself in a bad relationship. People get into a bad, abusive relationship and stay there because it allows them to suffer, and that's what they want. Now, above that, you come up to level 4, which is the normal. By the way, before I get into the normal, the loser is pulling in bad things on himself. He's not pulling it on everybody, he's pulling it into himself, so it's an inflow. Now, the normal is an outflow, but it's an outflow in the way that we expect people to be. In other words, the normal has a job, he has a house, he has a mortgage, he has a car and a car payment, he has kids, he takes a vacation. He's normal. He is searching for or going after conformity. That is his purpose. Now, you might say, well, conformity is not a good thing. Well, think of it this way. The normal wants to fit in. If people grow their hair long, he's going to grow his hair long. If people cut their hair, he's going to cut his hair. If everybody grows sideburns, he's going to grow sideburns. When the sideburns are no longer in, he shaves them off. You see? This is a conformist. This is the largest demographic group. This is almost 30% of the population. So these people are definitely not malicious, but they're also not interested in saving the world.
Yeah.
So they are sort of in the middle there. Now notice there's a horizontal line there to the right of the normal, and above it says social, below it says antisocial. So anyone who's at level 5, 6, or 7 is necessarily antisocial. And anyone who's level 1, 2, or 3 is necessarily social. The normals, which are right in the middle, are not really social and not really antisocial. So they don't really want to harm anybody, but they're not really interested in helping anybody, you see? So they're not really social or antisocial. And then from there, you go up to level 3, which is the winner. Well, the winner is going after wealth. That is his purpose. Now, wealth doesn't just mean money. It depends on different contexts. It could mean a trophy wife. It could mean jewelry. If you're an actor, it could mean winning the Academy Award. If you're a football player, it could mean winning the Super Bowl. You see, you have that Super Bowl ring. Or if you win the World Series in baseball, you get a ring that you keep for the rest of your life. That's wealth. You can show off that ring. And in the baseball world, that is wealth. So you can get endorsements because they say, Johnny Bench, who won the World Series, you see, and he does his commercial and he gets $1 million. So it translates into money.
Yeah.
So the winner is inflowing wealth to himself. This is a very obvious and conspicuous inflow. He inflows cash, he inflows endorsements, he inflows whatever he thinks is wealth, he wants to inflow it, and that's what his life is about. This is easy for most people to understand. Now, then there's another horizontal line separating the humans, which is the people at 3, 4, and 5, from the superhumans, which are the people at 1 and 2. Now, examples of leaders. Abraham Lincoln was a leader. Alexander Hamilton was a leader. What do they have in common? These were men from different generations who both accomplished great things under tremendous duress with enormous opposition, and both ended up with an untimely demise. They were both killed by a bullet from an opponent. That is what happens to leaders. The leader is down for the struggle. The leader is not there to feather his nest. The leader's objective is conquest. Now you might say, wait a minute, conquest isn't a good thing. Well, that's a question of whose ox is being gored. For example, when Lincoln conquered the Confederacy, most people living today would say that was a good thing. He freed the slaves. He preserved the Union, all right? In order to do that, he had to conquer the Confederacy. He got very little help on this. They were not doing well until Lincoln discovered a little-known general named Grant and his friend Sherman. And those two generals are who won the war for Lincoln.
Yeah.
There were many other generals who they didn't have it in them to conquer anybody. They weren't leaders. And if you study the Civil War, as I have, you'll see there are many of them. Now, because the leader is down for the struggle, they have terrible things happen to them. They put themselves out there. They say, I'm going to do this great thing. And usually terrible things happen to them as a result of that. Alexander the Great also was a leader. And he conquered the known world by age 28, and then he died of malaria. He didn't get to enjoy his conquest. That's what happens to leaders.
Yeah.
Up from that is the saint. The saint is on a withdrawal. That's why it's a minus. He's withdrawing from the world. His goal is to transcend. He's not interested in wealth, fame, sex, anything like that. This is the type of person you find in a monastery, in a convent, in an ashram, or it might be a hermit. This is somebody who seeks to transcend the world. An example of saints are, of course, Jesus of Nazareth, St. Paul, St. Peter, Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, they were spiritually oriented people who sought to transcend. Now, if you talk to these people, the way they explain it will be in the context of their belief systems. So, for example, if you talk to a Christian saint, meaning a saint person is at that level who happens to be a Christian, he'll say, well, he wants to go to heaven and become an angel. If you talk to a Buddhist, he'll say, well, he wants to attain nirvana. You see, they explain it in a different way, but they're both saints. So, for example, Paramahansa Yogananda, who brought prana yoga to the United States almost a century ago now, okay, he was a saint. He sought transcendence his whole life. So these are people at level 1 and 2 have spectacular ability. People at 3, 4, or 5 cannot do what these people can do. And that's one of the clues to identifying them. So if you, I talked about Alexander Hamilton. This is a guy whose ability was so great that as an orphan, the people in his community took up a collection to send him to college. That's how brilliant he was.
Wow.
He was running a business when he was 13, okay? He went to what we today call Columbia University, and he left to fight in the revolution. You see, that's what leaders do. He risked his life over and over. He was so brilliant that Washington kept him at his elbow for the whole war. Hamilton kept asking Washington, give me a command so I can lead, so I can fight, because he wanted to conquer. See, Washington said, no way, I need you right here. You're not going anywhere. Until the last battle of the war, he finally was given a command, and it was Hamilton who led the charge against the redoubt in Norfolk. There were 2 redoubts. The other was led by Lafayette. So he finally got to conquer. When he finally got a command, and he did, he conquered. And that was the end of the war. That was how the Americans won the war. So when you see somebody who has abilities like what Gandhi did, most people don't even understand what he did, let alone try to do it. I mean, it was miraculous what he did. That's what you get from saints and leaders, which is why they're superhumans. Any questions?
Oh, no.
Okay. Now, let's talk about what is this scale measuring? It's measuring, there's a dotted line there, a dotted vertical line. At the top of the scale is courage, wisdom, and ethics. And at the bottom of the scale is fear, stupidity, and criminality. Those are opposites, antonyms. The opposite of courage is fear. The opposite of wisdom is stupidity. The opposite of ethics is criminality. So the higher you are on the scale, the more courage, wisdom, and ethics you have. And the lower you are on the scale, the more fear, stupidity, and criminality you have. Yeah. So what do you see when you observe Hitler, who is at level 7? Fear, stupidity, and criminality. You know, you hear a lot about how evil he was, But you don't hear too much about how stupid he was. I can tell you, as a serious scholar of military science, he committed 6, depending on how you want to think about it, 6 or 8 catastrophic errors, okay, which no competent officer would ever do. And people look at this and say, why did he do that? Well, I can tell you why he did it. He was stupid.
Yeah.
Good. And you say, well, look at what he did to the Jews. Okay? He had to fear the Jews. You know, the Jews are the richest demographic in the United States
Yeah.
because we welcomed them. Okay? And they pay more taxes than any other subgroup in the United States. Okay?
Yeah.
Hitler, a dope, he had no training in military science. He was a dopey guy, honestly. And I could go through the whole history of World War II and point out with specificity things he did that just make you scratch your head, that
Yeah.
caused him to lose the war. And obviously, criminality. I mean, he was a continuously criminal person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so then you go to the other end and you look at Jesus of Nazareth. Courage, wisdom, and ethics. Okay? So that's what this scale is measuring.
Hmm.
Any questions?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can tell you, if I wanted to, the basic purpose of every president of the United States, going back as far as Franklin Delano Roosevelt and many of the previous presidents who I studied, such as Lincoln and Washington and Jefferson. Now, as far as FDR and all the presidents after that, we have video of them. We have recordings of them. It's very easy to observe these persons. You watch the person, you see what he says, how he says it, how he behaves, okay? And with all of these scales, the people tell you their levels. This is not hard to get. Once you know the data, you just observe the guy and you can find his basic purpose. Or any of the other 34 scales works the same way. You observe the person and you can just see it's there for anybody to observe once you know the material.
Yeah.
So, for example, when Obama came on the scene and was running for president, most of us had no idea who he was. He had only been in the Senate for 2 years. And so this guy's running for president. I thought, well, I have to educate myself. How do I know? I don't know anything about this guy. So I made it a little project of mine to pay attention to him. And I listened to his speeches, I observed him, and I was able to figure out, took me a while, took me a couple of months to figure out his basic purpose. When that light bulb went on, I knew what he was trying to do because that's what the basic purpose is. It's what the person is trying to do. So that informed me about whether I should vote for him or not vote for him. So that's how you use this. It's really important to find your basic purpose, and then your life will be much clearer and simpler and easier because you're not messing with things that have nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Any questions before we go on?
No, I after looking at it and how of your explanation, it makes a lot of sense now. Definitely.
Right.
I can
And
see.
the other 34 are the same way. They make a lot of sense. And the reason they make a lot of sense is it's natural law.
Yeah.
I did not invent these. I simply found them
Yeah, you
because of the
discovered it.
nature of my work and my background. And I said, I need to share this with people like yourself, Paul, who would benefit from this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I hope everybody else who watches this or is going to watch this benefits from it and takes the time to sit down to review this and watch the show. So, yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to go on to the next?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go
Okay.
on to the next
All
one.
right, scale of personal influence. So let me explain this. There are many ways to influence someone. If I hit somebody over the head with a club, that's influencing him, but that's not what I mean by personal influence. Personal influence is how you influence somebody as a person, what you do as an individual, the way in which you influence people. And there are 7 basic ways. Now, this is a linear scale, just like the last one. This is a quantum scale, just like the last one. And it's a general scale, just like the last one. Now, let's go over to the right side. Look at the vertical dotted line. That is the axis that tells you what we are measuring in this scale. In other words, you could ask 7 levels of what? This is what it is. At the top, you have cause, and at the bottom, you have effect. So this is a scale that measures cause and effect. So the closer you are to being causative, the further up the scale you are. The lower on the scale you are, the more you are at effect. Now, this scale, as with all the other scales, every single human being is somewhere on this scale, as with the other 34 scales. So it's the data is sitting there waiting for you to access it. Now, again, we have the plus and minus, inflow, outflow. That's why this is quantum. So, for example, level 7 is an outflow. Level 6 is an inflow. And I'm going to talk about these levels and show you how they're an outflow and an inflow, or in a more psychological way to say a reach or withdrawal.
Yeah.
So now, 7, martyrdom. Okay, a person who's being martyred, that's as at effect as you're going to get, right? They're killing you.
Mm-hmm.
Usually not in an easy way.
No.
Okay, so what is martyrdom? Martyrdom is about humility. You are influencing people with your humility. You're saying, oh, I am going to die for whatever this is because I am a humble person. And you see, that's a big outflow. That has a big effect on people. It's like, whoa. Well, that's how Jesus influenced the human race. 2,000 years later, 1 billion people are still following Jesus. And that's how he influenced them, by martyrdom, which is the ultimate in humility.
Yeah.
Will you allow your enemies to kill you? That's as humble as you can get, right? It's a big outflow. Up from that is victimization. Victimization is an inflow. This is what is colloquially referred to as running a guilt trip. So people who say, oh, I'm a victim, you should feel guilty because I'm a victim. This goes on in America a lot today.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? This is a way of influencing people. So this is what you see from socialists or communists. They say, oh, the poor people are victims of the rich. You see, it's a guilt trip. They are influencing you by being a victim. That is a big inflow. They're like pulling in your sympathy up. So feel sorry for me. It's not an outflow, it's an inflow. Now, up from that is domination. Domination is a very obviously outflow. When you see somebody dominating another person, they're overwhelming them. That's what domination is. That's an outflow. This is what you see from somebody like Hitler. Hitler influenced people by domination. You ever watch his speeches? It's domination, domination, domination. So it's clear if you watch his speeches, it's an outflow. He was reaching, he wasn't withdrawing like the victimized people. He was reaching with this domination. See, that's another way to influence people. Up from that, you come to the center line, which is aloofness. Aloofness is restraint. In Victorian times, women did this habitually. Most Victorian ladies were very restrained. Okay? If you watch them carefully, they were aloof. Okay? And but you don't have to be a woman, although there are more women who use this than men.
Yeah.
Women seem to be better at this than men. They restrain themselves. Very often you see a beautiful woman who's very restrained. She doesn't want to encourage anybody to come on to her, you see? So she's aloof. I am above you. You cannot touch me. I'm too beautiful.
Yeah.
You see, it's an inflow. You can feel the inflow if you go around somebody. I used to know somebody like this. I knew this woman who was, I don't think I ever found out her name. Probably I knew it and forgot it, but she was gorgeous. Okay. She looked like she came right out of Vogue magazine. Okay. And she was conspicuously aloof. She restrained herself. She didn't want guys coming around her because if she had not been aloof, every guy that she walked past would be after her. So this is an inflow. You could feel the inflow. I would go around her and I would feel this inflow. It was almost like pulling me in. See, pulling me in.
Yeah.
You can't touch me, but I'm going to draw you in.
It's like a tease.
Right. That's a way to influence people. So if she said, Jim, would you please get me a chair? Oh, sure. You see? If some guy said that to me, I would say, what do you got, two broken legs? Get your own chair. You see?
Yeah.
So it's an inflow. Now, above that, you come up to reason. This is people who influence others by logic. This is what lawyers are trained to do. This is what rhetoric is about. This is what politicians do. In case you haven't noticed, most politicians are lawyers. They're trained to use reason,
Yeah.
and that is an outflow. They outflow their rhetoric, and it's logical. They're always explaining to you, this is why you should find my client innocent or not guilty. You see,
Yeah.
they outflow the logic to you, and that's how they influence you. Now, you see, that's quite causative, as opposed to, compare that to 6, victimization. There's a lot of being effect there rather than being cause.
Yeah.
See? So as you go up, these become, but they become cause, but it reverses polarity on each level. Now, when you come up to 2, charisma, this is something that,
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
I'm sorry,
That's
this is
serious.
something that is mysterious. Okay? Most people know about charisma, but don't know what it is. This is one of these things where you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
It is a type of leadership. It's a mysterious type of leadership. A person who has charisma, he does not have to influence you by any of the lower levels. You just follow him. Okay? A perfect example is Jack Kennedy. He was conspicuously charismatic. He was so charismatic, you just looked at him, and there it was. He had this leadership power. Elvis was like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Elvis had charisma. What the hell is it? Well, we don't really know, but it is a leadership thing. It's a type of an inflow where they draw you into them. People wanted to follow Jack Kennedy. They wanted to follow Elvis. You see, when you have somebody who has charisma, people want to follow that person because he leads them. That is what charisma is. So it draws you in and people follow you.
Yeah. Huh.
And above that is the highest level, which is telepathy. Telepathy is will. Now, as I say in the book, the truth is that all humans have some telepathic ability. Some have more than others. The big dividing line is whether you know it or not.
Mm.
There are a lot of people who have telepathy and don't recognize it for what it is. Somebody who's telepathic can control you by will. You just put the idea into the person's head and they do it. You don't have to say anything. That's what telepathy is. So let's say a guy has this telepathic power. He sees some beautiful girl and he puts the intent in her head that she is going to go out with you. He doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to give her flowers. He doesn't have to write her a song or anything. She has been influenced by his telepathy.
Yeah.
And there are people who can do this. More people than you think. But as I said, a large majority of people are not aware that they're doing this. Now, let me give you a famous example of this that almost everybody knows. In the original Star Wars movie, Obi-Wan Kenobi is in the speeder with Luke and the two droids. And they come to Mos Eisley Spaceport. And the stormtroopers stop them. The stormtroopers already know that these droids are wanted. They have data in them.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Exactly.
At least now I know you're a Star Wars fan.
Yes. Now, well, I was back then. The later ones weren't as good. But anyway, but if you notice, he says sotto voce, and you can barely hear him. He barely moves his mouth. These are not the droids we're looking for, you see. And then the sergeant says, these are not the droids we're looking for. And he lets them through. So there are people who can do that. And they get things done in some mysterious way.
Yeah.
They can will you to do something.
Huh.
Okay? So those are the 7 levels of personal influence. All the other types of personal influence are subsets of these.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Absolutely not.
Okay? Okay, the scale of choice. Now, the main theme, the most important theme, the most popular theme in human events is freedom. That's why we fight wars.
Yeah.
That's why we have rebellions. People want to be free. Well, what is freedom? Freedom is the ability to choose. If you can choose, you're free. If you can't choose, you're not free. So you have some guy who's in jail, right? He's behind bars. He can't just take a walk. He can't go out for the newspaper or go out for ice cream, right? He does not have that choice. His choice has been taken away from him. So he does not have freedom. So when we're talking about the scale of choice, we're talking about freedom, which obviously is extremely important to everyone.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at the vertical dotted line on the right. At the top is complete freedom and responsibility, and at the bottom is no freedom or responsibility. Now, this links freedom with responsibility. When a person is not free, he's not free because he fails to take responsibility. To the degree that you are responsible, you are free. And to the degree that you shirk responsibility, you lose your freedom. And this is clear if I explain the 7 levels. That's what you're going to see. Now, This is a spiral quantum specific scale, right? This is quite different from the last couple of scales. It's a spiral scale, meaning if you look at level 1, it says no choice. If you look at level 7, it says no choice. That is an apparent congruency. But at level 1, it's no choice necessary. And at level 7, it's no choice possible.
Yeah.
A person at level 7 has no choice. But he has no choice because it's not possible for him to have a choice. Because he's oblivious. That is what oblivion is. When you are oblivious, no choice is possible because you're oblivious. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Now, a person at level 1, he doesn't even have to make a choice. He's transcendent. See, no choice is necessary. So again, you have to be careful not to make this mistake. Now, to me, it's pretty easy to tell the difference between the transcendent person and the oblivious person. But for a lot of people, that's difficult. And that is why you often find the example I gave earlier, Jesus, where he was put to death. He was a transcendent person, okay? Now, and notice that he was brought before Pilate, and Pilate said, defend yourself, speak. Jesus refused to speak. You know why? No choice was necessary for him. In other words, Pilate said, Jesus understood that Pilate could have him crucified. He didn't care. He was going to go to heaven. So that same day, he was in heaven. Now, he transcended. Now, it wasn't that no choice was possible for him. It wasn't that he was oblivious. He was transcendent. You see?
Mm-hmm.
It's the most dramatic difference possible. So you have to be careful not to make that mistake.
Yeah.
Now, this is a quantum scale. Again, notice the minus and the plus, plus, minus, plus, minus. You have to reverse polarity to change level. If you're at level 2 and you want to go to level 1, there's no gradation there. There's no little by little where you gradually go up. You change instantaneously from one level to the next. So here's what you'll get. You get a guy who's at a certain level, let's say hypothetically level 5, right? He goes for therapy. And he's in therapy, and all of a sudden one day, bang, he has a big change. He jumps up to level 4. That's what happens with this scale.
Yeah.
Now, he did not change because of that particular therapy session. There were many therapy sessions. And eventually he had a realization. You see? And he said, oh, I see now. Bing, he's at the next level. Just like that. Okay? Now, this is a specific scale. Meaning, this has no general meaning. It makes no sense to try to find somebody on this scale in general. It's like dividing by 0.
Yeah.
You have to have a context. Choice in what regard? So, a person will have one level on this scale regarding his wife, another level regarding his job, another level regarding his mother, another level regarding his bowling club. Okay? So he could be at different levels for all of these different things. So you have to have a context to make sense out of this. And if you read the chapter, it's explained much more thoroughly. Now, the plus and the minus here manifests as one viewpoint, many viewpoints, one viewpoint, many viewpoints, one viewpoint, many viewpoints. So if you are at level 7, you have one viewpoint. And the viewpoint is no choice is possible. That's the end of it. There's no discussion. That's the viewpoint. You see, that's an inflow.
Yeah.
You are introverted. That is what oblivion is. The person is turned in upon himself. Okay? He has only one viewpoint, and it's an inflow. Now, if he were at 6, that's an outflow. He has many viewpoints. Why does he have many viewpoints? Because he's outflowing. So 6 is the group's choice. Well, if you are letting a group make your choice for you, that is collectivism. That is what you have in communism. The group chooses.
Yeah.
So in the old Soviet Union, they told you what school you would go to, what profession you would have, what house you would live in, if you would get a car, and if you got a car, when you would get the car. Okay, it was the group's choice. It was the people. The people decide, right?
Yeah.
Collectivist. So there are, anytime you're talking about people, that is a collective word, there are many viewpoints. So it's an outflow. Okay? And at 5, you go up to 5, now you get up to another's choice. Now this is robotism. You have one viewpoint, and the viewpoint is the person who is pushing you around, the person who's determining your behavior. So let's say you have a domineering wife. Guy comes home from work. The wife says, "Change your shirt. We're going out for Chinese food." He says, "Yes, dear." You see, he is a robot to her. Could go the other way around. The husband could be domineering.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the one person is a robot to the other person. Okay, so there's one viewpoint, and it's for this case that I gave you of the guy. The viewpoint is his wife's viewpoint. If the wife says it's Chinese food, that's it. It's Chinese food. He doesn't get to say, "Well, maybe we should go to the deli." See, that's not going to happen. She's a robot to her.
Yeah.
You see, it's one viewpoint, and it's her viewpoint. So it's an inflow. He's withdrawn into himself. He allows this other person to make the choice. He does not outflow any assertion. Then you go up to 4. Now this one is tricky. Any choice but one's own. This is what irresponsibility is. When you are irresponsible, you make a choice, but it's not your own choice. And I'll give you an example. A bunch of people go to, let's say, an ice cream parlor, right?
Yeah.
First guy orders chocolate. Second guy orders chocolate. Third guy orders chocolate. When it comes around to this guy, what does he order? Chocolate. You know why? Because it's not his own choice. It's any choice, but it's not his own. So this guy kind of makes a choice, but he makes the choice determined by other people. This is what being trendy means.
Yeah. He was influenced by other choices.
Right. Now notice, now there's all these people who have all these tattoos, right? If you go back to the 60s, you know who mostly had tattoos? Like guys who were in the Navy, when the Marine Corps, they'd get one tattoo, right? That was it. Then suddenly it became, oh, you have to have tattoos, right? So all of these people who are at level 4 are going out and getting tattoos. So they're not really assuming responsibility. You see, there are many viewpoints, and it's all these people who are getting tattoos, that's many viewpoints.
Yeah.
So he sort of goes along with them because he's not really taking responsibility for this.
Huh.
Or another example, let's say you have a guy, he goes to a church, and everybody there is a Republican. So he becomes a Republican. Any choice but one's own. See, there are many viewpoints. Hundreds of people there that he knows now. They're all Republicans. So he becomes a Republican. See, he's not really accepting responsibility for this.
Yeah.
He's just sort of going along with the crowd.
Yeah.
So it's any choice but one's own. So it's an outflow. See, when that guy says, "Oh, I'll have chocolate," see, that's an outflow. He's asserting himself, but he's not asserting himself responsibly. He's asserting himself irresponsibly by letting other people decide for him.
Yeah.
So, like, hairstyles change, right? Like in the 70s, guys had long hair and mustaches, right? Well, in the 80s, the long hair changed, style changed, the mustaches went away, right? And they went from long sleeves to short sleeves, right?
Mhm.
So they went from wide ties to skinny ties, okay? So this is being trendy. You go along with the group.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have many viewpoints. You have many people who shaved off their mustaches. So you're going to shave off your mustache, okay? Because you can make any choice, but it's not your own choice.
Yeah.
It's the choice of the many.
Yeah. Going with the popularity.
Right. And again, it's an outflow. You're saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to shave off my mustache." See, it's not an inflow; it's an outflow. Now let's go up to level 3, one's own choice. Okay, this is what some might describe as selfish.
Hmm.
So you go to the ice cream parlor. First guy takes chocolate. Next guy takes chocolate. Next guy comes to you. You say, "I want strawberry." They all look at him. Right? Why is he doing that? That's what he wants.
Yeah.
So it's literally selfish. It's not selfish in the point of he's keeping it all for himself. He himself is making the choice.
Mhm.
And so there's one viewpoint, and that viewpoint is his viewpoint. You see? So that guy could go to a church where everybody's Republican and he'll say, "No, I'm a Democrat. You guys can be Republicans, but I'm not doing that." See? So he's selfish in the sense of his own self
Mm.
decides. And that's his viewpoint. So it's kind of an inflow in the sense of selfishness is always kind of an inflow.
Yeah.
Now, people will look at this guy and say, "Oh, he's selfish." Well, that in a certain sense, that's true. It's true in the sense that he himself decides.
Yeah.
But they're trying to characterize him as being greedy, which
Mhm.
doesn't apply here. It's just that's his choice.
Yeah.
So you go up from there to level 2, any choice. Now, this is a good place to be. When you're at any choice, you're aloof. See, this guy can choose whatever he wants. He's not being pressured by anybody to eat chocolate because they all eat chocolate. And he is not particularly asserting his own, he's not going around saying, "Oh, no, strawberry is better." He's just aloof.
Yeah.
So he has many viewpoints because he can make any choice he wants. Now, as with most scales, when you get to the extremes of the scales, most people have some difficulty grasping it. So this might not make sense to some readers. But a person who is aloof can make any choice he wants. He can. This is like a free thinker. He could become a Christian. He could become a Catholic, a Protestant, a Baptist, a Mormon. He
Mhm.
can choose whatever he wants. And so this is a sense of being liberated. See, this person is very free. This aloofness frees him.
Yeah.
See, he doesn't have to be a Marxist because all the kids in the school are Marxists. He can read Marx and say, "Okay, well, no, I'm still a capitalist." See, He can have any choice he wants. Now, the beauty of this is, if the girlfriend comes to him and says, I want to go for Chinese food, he says, okay. 10 minutes later, she changes her mind, says, you know what? I decided I want to go for Italian food. He says, okay. See, this guy is going to get along with people very well because he can make any choice. See? So, like if his girlfriend says, you know, you really look good in dark colors, he'll say, okay, I'll wear dark colors.
Yeah.
Because he can make any choice. It doesn't really matter to him if he wears a white shirt or a black shirt. You see, the guy at 3, he's going to say, no, I don't like dark colors. I'm wearing a white shirt. And you're not going to tell me to wear a dark shirt because this is my own choice. See, that's level 3. Level 2, he doesn't give a damn. See, many viewpoints.
Huh.
So this guy, he can go out with a girl who's a Hindu, a Jew, a Catholic, an atheist. You know why? Many viewpoints.
Yeah.
Okay. Then above that is you get to no choice. No choice necessary. And this is transcendence. This is one viewpoint. And the viewpoint is, it doesn't matter. I don't have to make a choice. See, it's not that he's making a choice, any choice, like the guy at 2. He doesn't even make a choice. There is no choice. So let's say there's an election going on, right? And most of the people are saying, hey, well, should I vote for this guy? Should I vote for that guy? Should I tell people who I'm voting for? If I'm going to tell them, I'm going to argue with them. You know, this guy, he doesn't care. He doesn't care who gets elected because he's transcendent.
Yeah.
So think about this. You have the Christians who the Romans tried for 300 years to exterminate them. And they failed. You know why? So you have these Christians out in the middle of the Colosseum, right? The Romans are letting the lions in. They're saying, okay, send in the lions. In 10 minutes, I'll be in heaven. You see? That's transcendence.
Yeah.
So that's not most people don't really have too much of a reality on this. Similar with 7, no choice possible. So when you see somebody at either 1 or 7, most people will kind of scratch their head. This guy's not making a choice, but you have to realize it's a gigantic difference.
Yeah.
At 7, this guy can't make any choice. See, this guy doesn't even know that an election is going on. You say to him, oh, who are you voting for in the election? He says, what election?
Yeah. He's oblivious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can he make a choice? He doesn't even know who's running.
Yeah.
You see? Whereas the guy at 1, he doesn't care. You know? He's on his way to nirvana or heaven or whatever he thinks of transcendence as being, however he parses it in his vernacular. Any questions?
No. This is really making sense now. It's like, wow. Huh. That's good. Let's see.
So if you read the book, I explain all this in detail in the chapter. After the scale comes the chapter, and it goes into all these different details.
Wow.
Do you want to do another one, or
I tell you what. Let's leave off on the scale of choice.
okay?
And allow people to soak that up like a sponge.
Right.
And we can continue with like maybe a part 3.
Sure.
And go over maybe how many are there? You have
There are 35 scales.
you got 30. Okay, you got 38 slots. Well, okay.
35.
All right.
38 slides, 35 scales.
Shoot, I can. um, yeah, I could have a special series each month and stuff like that all next
Right.
year. Shoot, we can
Yes.
go out for some time, but that's perfect. I mean, it's perfect. This is awesome material. I mean, it's really, really good material, and it gives me time to soak it up too. So,
And the thing you have to realize is the reason that you're getting it, this is not from me.
hmm
This exists in nature,
yeah,
like the Fibonacci sequence.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
because it's natural law, people get it. I've been watching this for 27 and a half years since the first version of this book was written.
yeah.
People look at this and they say, "Oh, yeah, I see. I get it. Yeah."
Right?
And it's like Newton's three laws of motion. Once as a student of physics, once you know the three laws of motion, it's like you can't not know them. It's like, well, of
Yeah.
course, every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
hmm
No, it becomes an of course to you.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because it's natural law.
Yep. And that's what's amazing about natural law too. People like, when I first heard about it years ago, and when you throw it out in front of you and you start looking at them, you start looking at all the natural laws and stuff. And at first you're oblivious, but then you start to look into it. You're like, we recognize it. We start to recognize it, and you don't really have to study it. It's natural. It's how the operation works.
Right.
And yeah, it's
And because of that, it's easy to understand these, it's easy to remember them, and it's easy to use them.
yeah,
So when I was writing this, I was writing it, making the scales in a way that they would wrap around the reader.
hmm
It's like buying a suit. You go into a store, there's 10,000 suits. You want one suit, right?
yeah,
So you have to say, well, what color do I like? What fabric do I like? What is my size? What style? You go through all this, and eventually you leave with a suit, and a hole in your bank account.
yeah,
So, but there's this process you go through, right? Where the salesman will say, well, tell me, what do you want double breasted? See, you want old style suit, new style suit? You want dark colors? You want a fabric? You want what kind of fabric? You want a pattern or you don't want a pattern? How about pinstripes? You don't like pinstripes? Okay. So you see, he's narrowing it down. And that is exactly the way this works.
yeah,
Of
yeah.
course, 35 axes.
And speaking of suits and choices, and especially choices, I've heard this many times over the course of the last several years after Steve Jobs had passed away, and that guy was brilliant because I learned that I'm not sure at what point in his life that he did this, but he came up with a system that would keep him from having to think too much. He didn't want too many choices. So what he did is he wore the same thing over and over. He
Oh,
wore the
yeah, I
same
know
thing
that
all the time.
story.
Black
He wore
shirt
the
and
same thing
jeans.
every day.
That was it.
Yes.
Because he's like, I don't want to have to make that choice. I
Right.
do not want to wake up in the morning and have to choose what to wear because I have more important things to worry about and choose
That's
to
right.
save my mind power for the rest of
So, so he kind of became like Superman, where he had a
the
uniform
day.
that
Yeah.
was always the
Yep.
same. Yeah.
And when I looked into
Donald
that
Trump
and
is that way too. He always has the same outfit.
yeah, exactly.
This
Yeah.
time, somebody has vast closets full of these blue suits,
Yeah, right.
red ties and
Ah,
white shirts.
right. It was like, okay, who was doing the laundry? Yeah, it's like, and then when I started looking at it, I was like, that is awesome. That is a really cool way to think about. Don't think too much. Save that energy. Don't worry about having to choose your wardrobe when you, especially when you wake up. It's like save your energy and don't worry.
Yeah, and you're talking about the scale of choice.
Yep.
No choice necessary.
Exactly. Yep. Ah,
Right?
that's perfect. Yeah. Cool.
So, somebody says, well, do you like blondes? Do you like brunettes? Do you like redheads? I say yes.
Exactly. Yeah. I go, yep. I like them all.
Yeah.
It's just which one comes first.
Okay.
Awesome.
So thank you very
Stay-
much.
You are very welcome. Stay tuned, everybody. Stay tuned, everybody. And yeah, for part 3, as we go through this course and look through the rest of the scales. Probably go through about I'd say maybe 4 or 5 pages next time, in about an hour and a half worth. So yeah, and everybody, don't forget to get the book. And Jim, tell everybody how and where they can get the book.
Well, I invite your viewers to my website, which is septemics.com, Septemics, where you can see what many readers have said about it, what many journalists have written about it, what the reviews are. You can read sections of the book itself. And there's even a recorded lecture, Introduction to Septemics, that you can listen to and get a general gist of what it's about. And then it's easy to find. It's Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, any place books are sold. This book is easy to find.
Wait.
Just type Septemics into a search engine, and you get hundreds of responses, including all the people who are selling the book.
Yeah.
Joe's Bookstore in Akron, Ohio.
Oh yeah. Jim, thank you again.
Thank you, Paul.
And we will see you next time.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network's The Seance, and we will see you back on part 3.